We got, is it Blake in New York?
Yeah. Hey, guys.
Hey, thanks for holding, Blake. What do you got?
Hey, happy holidays. I wanted to say, now that I'm down here spending the holidays in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I got in a bit of a religious scrape with someone down here, and it pertains a lot to what you were talking about just a fundamental grasp of reality. And this girl represented what I like to, you guys talk about warm and fuzzy Christians. There's also what I like to call just like a sweeping Shiist who just have, I think, a very paper-thin view on reality anyway, because when I asked her what her belief structure was, she said, oh, I just believe that God is love. Yeah. And that this and that and all this kind of all these vagaries and stuff. And she claimed to be a Catholic. And I was like, lady, I went to 9 years of Catholic school. You aren't remotely a Catholic. You're like some sweeping theist.
If God is love, does that mean I made God last night?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you could say anything. But she was saying stuff like, well, love is, do you believe love is real? If you believe love is real, you believe God is real. I'm like, there's a difference between a conceptual abstraction and a supernatural claim. But my point is, I said, if you just have this kind of vague, sweeping view, why believe or go to church or practice at all? And she said, well, the apologetic she gave me, I thought was really funny. She said, if a waiter laid down a tray and gave you, and there were 5 hors d'oeuvres on the tray, which I guess represent different religions or belief structures, why would you pick none if you could pick one? And I said, no, your analogy is flawed, because a better analogy would be a waiter presents a tray that has nothing on it, and he claims that there are 5 invisible hors d'oeuvres and that you have to pick one or face the consequences. And I said, in that case, I pick none.
Yeah.
You know?
If I could just hone your analogy a little bit. He brings you a menu, right? And then when you order one, he doesn't bring you anything.
It may be the case that the waiter brings you a tray with a bunch of nasty things on it that you wouldn't possibly eat, and yet he lies to you and tells you that they're brilliant exotic recipes and delicacies that actually taste wonderful. And you take a bite of one, and it really doesn't taste that good. You don't understand why anybody would eat this. And well, obviously you have the palate of an unrefined individual, that type of thing. And if that's the case, rather than choosing which turd on the plate I'd like to eat, I think I'll say none.
Yeah, and one last thing she said, another similar apologetic, which was if I'm like, why on earth, if you were an omniscient, penetrating, all-knowing force of the universe, why would you? Are you that insecure that you need to be worshipped and that you need to be pandered to, and that you're so petty that you're like, oh, I created everything and I'm all wisdom and I know I'm the alpha and the omega, but hey, you the pissant humans don't worship me, fine, you don't get to be in my secret club. I'm like, why would you care? And she's like, well, if if say I loved you and I showed you all kinds of love all the time, and I made you lunch every day and I folded your clothes, how would I feel if you didn't show me any love back? I'm like, no, again, your analogy doesn't stand. If there was an invisible person folding my clothes and making my lunch every day,
but he's not
then we would have something to talk about.
But the invisible person is not clothes.
It's somebody standing there telling you there's an invisible person folding your clothes, and you look down and the clothes aren't folded.
Right, exactly.
Or there's some housekeeper folding your clothes, and the invisible person, somebody else tells you the invisible person gets credit for the fact that they got folded.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and so like what you were talking about before, and it just comes down to like a grasp on reality in the natural world, and how I think people, they over time, when they're around a culture of enablers, like down here, like there isn't a lot of, like this lady was talking to me and I was asking her this stuff. She's 30 years old. She had never been asked these questions before in her life. Yeah. And I'm like, when you go that long in a culture of enablers, I think your grasp on, not just theology, take theology out of it, your grasp on reality becomes thinner, I think.
Yeah. Hey, Blake, I'm going to go ahead and let you go because I want to hit a couple points and we got more callers on the line, but thanks a lot for calling in.
Okay, guys. See ya.
Bye, Blake.
Talking about that, people have written in and asked me before, how on earth could somebody like you, Matt, who clearly is a decent critical thinker, have possibly bought into this idea of God and religion for as long as you did? And that's the answer right there.
Right.
I was never challenged on it. I didn't bother to challenge myself on it. Yes, I was a skeptic and a critical thinker in other areas. I just never bothered to turn that same eye on my own beliefs. And when I did, they fell to pieces. And that wasn't my goal at all. Hopefully they got a graphic ready. It kind of ties into a couple things that we talked about. I posted this on my Facebook page. It's been on several of the blogs lately. It has nothing at all to do with atheism, but it does, however, have something to do with skepticism. If you go on YouTube and do a search for Tim Minchin, that's M-I-N-C-H-I-N, and Storm, S-T-O-R-M, you will find a video that is Tim Minchin doing his beat poetry poem called Storm that addresses pseudoscience and nonsensical beliefs, and it's even the people who don't normally think Tim Minchin is particularly funny found this to be easily the best thing he's done, and a brilliant kind of dissertation on skepticism. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. You can either hit my Facebook page and there'll be a link there, or you can go to YouTube and look for Tim Minchin, M-I-N-C-H-I-N space Storm, and it'll probably be the first thing that pops up. Somebody typed in the lyrics. It's terrible quality audio because we recorded at a live event, but it's well worth watching.
There's captions, so.
Yes. Yeah, the captions are necessary, but it is well worth watching.